Alright guys, that's Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Shotzzy getting called out by Scrap going into the major after a difficult couple of weeks for OpTic Texas. They need a big bounce back in front of their home crowd, especially given their ring ceremonies on the Saturday. They've got to make sure they're still in the tournament by then. The bracket is pretty spicy. They play Falcons in the first round. Lots of fascinating storylines there, but Scrap finds out that Shotzzy was playing a few more Chals than maybe otherwise would be expected and says, look, not surprised that Shotzzy is putting in the extra work right now. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Scrap and K-Sun back at it again with the Chals over the last couple of days. Obviously, we're going to talk about some Chals that Shotzzy was playing in a second. Maybe looking to improve his level to some degree, given there's been a fair bit of talk about that. Although it's got to be noted for Shotzzy, his Search and Destroy has been perfectly good, perfectly fine. His numbers in that game mode are very solid indeed. It's the hard point which has been the key question, but it's also the question for many players, right? Like even Scrap to an extent, but certainly his teammate HyDra, not been so good in hard points so far. A couple of things on just the state of the game right now. Formal was talking about this a week or so ago, but I didn't mention it until now. Just kind of the state of the attachments, the way the guns are. Back in the day, it's like, oh, what class are you running? Well, you'd already know what class he was running, because if he was using an M8, he'd be using quick draw, stock, and a reflex sight, right? Now, not always. I mean, back in Black Ops 3, I've done it again, but, you know, in respawns, they would often run reflex sight, quick draw, stock, whereas in Search and Destroy, they might take the quick draw off, put long barrel on instead. You could also run primary gunfighter and run all of that. On the Man of War, you'd sometimes want to use the grip potentially. Same on the HVK. That was another option because it actually did something in that game, unlike in BO2. But it was relatively straightforward, right? Like on the VMP, people figured out, yeah, okay, quick draw grip, but also grip stock, and potentially all three was the way to go. And you would either use the VMP or the Vesper or something else, and they were pretty standard attachments. Now, some players like using different things. Some would like to use historically like the laser sight, or they would lean towards long barrel or whatever, but it was pretty clear cut what attachments you would use. It was the weapon of choice. That was the debate. And certainly in some of those games I've mentioned, there were plenty of viable weapons that were not GA'd by the pros. You could actually use them. Whereas nowadays, there's really just one gun that gets used and a million attachments, and people are asking people like, hey, what's your class setup looking like? I mean, this is the class that Scrap has come up with here, so you guys can see, well, the OpTic is a standard one, and then you've got barrel, under barrel, rear grip, and stock that he's running on this. So, you know, feel free to play around with it, but, I mean, look, the game has changed so much, and I don't know if it's ever really going to go back in the same way that it previously was. This weekend, though, some big matches. Of course, a couple of days away from the major getting underway. This is the first match of the tournament, and pretty spicy one, to be honest. Yeah, Gentlemates are the favourites here for this series. Toronto have struggled recently, but also still that Toronto team that are always going to be at some point in the season a reasonable threat. There is, of course, some history here. Envoy used to be with those Toronto guys. Now he's on Gentlemates. That's the first matchup of the tournament. The schedule is as follows. So Gentlemates play Toronto first up. It's a 1 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. Eastern time start, which is pretty standard. And that means it's 12:30 local time in Dallas, 10:30 Pacific time. Paris, Toronto, first series of the day, then Ravens FaZe, so, you know, that's going to be a banger, then OpTic Falcon, so always tactically done, I think, by the organisers, that usually the OpTic game is always third. I know that some people say, sometimes it's last. It's very rarely first or second. I think third is where you want to put it, because it gets the viewership going before, and it keeps hold of that viewership afterwards. So, like, it's OpTic's home major. They know how it goes to a degree. But they play the Falcons third up, and then there's FaZe versus G2. So, yeah, OpTic Falcons is going to be a fascinating series from a few different angles, and Brian's stats actually points out a couple of them. So Dashy versus Cellium, it's another big one. Dashy used to have, like, I think a really good record against Cellium, but that has changed a little bit in recent seasons, whereas Cellium has brought a bit of a comeback in this all-time record. I think Dashy used to properly have Cellium's number, which I guess makes sense because the last couple of years, FaZe have started to gain a really good record against OpTic under Drazah's CEO tenure. Obviously, under said tenure, OpTic have actually been the one winning the tournament, but in the head-to-head matchups, FaZe have done well the last couple of years against Dashy and OpTic. but Dashy's still positive all time against Cellium. So it's 11-9 on LAN, it's 18-17 all time no matter what, so it's an opportunity for Cellium to tie up their all time record, or for Dashy to pull one ahead. Not like that's the primary concern here, right? Obviously you're just trying to win the series, but yeah, their first LAN match against each other was way back in Black Ops 4, and all these years later, 7 or so years later, we are still here back at it again. So yeah, I thought it was interesting, of course, because it's also Pred versus OpTic. We've seen a little bit of this before he went to OpTic. You know, people even said, was it OpTic Pred or whatever? You guys remember that map on Hotel when he was on Surge and he knifed his teammate in the back and people were like OpTic Pred in the chat. And Pred was lapping it up because he knew he was going there at some point, and that's what happened the next season. Wins champs with them, the drama happens, now he's away from the organisation. But he's eliminated OpTic from 2 tournaments. OpTic has eliminated him from 2 tournaments. I think Vanguard World Championships, Modern Warfare 2 World Championships, he was part of that Surge team that knocked them out as well. And these matches would be against Shotzzy. So OpTic and Shotzzy are interchangeable. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? Pred, we've seen the Cellium versus Dashy record, but Pred versus Shotzzy is also another pretty interesting battle that we will get another chapter of over these next couple of days. But we know that OpTic have been struggling, right? Their numbers have not been solid in recent weeks. This was inevitable at some point. They were going to go through such a period. Now, Karma said, if you look at their scrims, they're still playing some top quality stuff. Like, he literally said, you'd think they were the best team in the game in their scrims over the last couple of weeks. Their matchup against Thieves, FaZe, didn't really show that. But the Ravens one was pretty bad because they even won the first map. Their Search and Destroy Game 2 was not good enough at all, and then they kind of got bodied for the rest of the series and just rolled over and died. And I think that's it's something that we've seen with OpTic in the past. Maybe they go down 1-0 or something. Even this series they went up 1-0. But they go down in a map to a team that they don't expect to lose to, and then they kind of lose their heads a little bit because they expect themselves to beat that team, and then when they're not starting on that foot, it's, you know, goes badly wrong. And you can kind of see that in the sense that OpTic, they've been winning everything for a long time. They play Ravens in this series, they start to lose, and they're like, damn, you know, we're what's going on here? And it seems like the comms and the mentality was just pretty chalked at that point, which obviously is not what you need to be in a position of, especially when Ravens are actually pretty good, right? I think that's the other key takeaway. But Shotzzy was grinding some chows, and Scrap realised it, that 04 was playing against him right here, and Scrap was like, damn, well, I'm not surprised that he's grinding, given his recent record.
2v2s. Oh, it's Ant! Oh! Ant's grinding! Ant's grinding! He's grinding, I wonder why. I wonder why.
You want to retake it?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, you go. You go. I mean for one second. I saw. Okay, bro.
Top blue.
I made now.
I'm train weak. Yeah, Scarlet. Who was top blue?
Now, as I said at the start of the video, of course, Search and Destroy Chals, and in Search and Destroy, Shotzzy's level has been perfectly adequate, right? Mercules has been, by far, their best player. I think just overall, but especially in Search and Destroy, that is true. Merc sitting at a 1.52 in Search and Destroy with 144 damage per round. Dashy actually has the second most damage per round at 111, but has a significantly lower KD than Shotzzy has at a 1.02. It's actually been Huke who's been struggling in Search. He only has 3 first bloods. To be fair, he is planting the bomb a lot. 12 in 1 plants defuses. But yeah, it's funny, Mercules is the one defusing the bomb because he's the guy clutching up all the rounds. But yeah, Shotzzy with 15 first bloods, planting the bomb occasionally, 1.02, you know, he's been perfectly fine in that game mode. The overload, Shotzzy's been reasonably good at as well. So have OpTic in general. Merc at a 1.07, Dashy at a 1.04, Shotzzy at a 1.01. So they've been okay at that mode. I think their win-loss is still actually, yeah, it's only 3 and 4. So they're not actually great at it at all, but their numbers are at least respectable. Maybe there's something to be said about that. It's the hard point that's really turning heads right now for, to be honest, it's not just OpTic. It's a lot of teams trying to figure out what the best approach is to this game. The same is true for Thieves, as we know. Their hard point numbers are kind of confusing as well. I mean, let me just look at the Thieves guys real quick and show you that, if I could just go back a couple of tabs, because Thieves HyDra's in a similar spot, right? You look at the hardpoint numbers, HyDra's at a 0.89 in hardpoint right now, and Shotzzy's a, low, I think actually it's slightly lower than this. Huke's not far away either. If we go to the overall stats here, look at the leaderboards, and I filter just by hardpoint, and I go by negative KD, you'll find Shotzzy's down at 47th in the league in hardpoint KD overall. Now, he's been bailed because he was 48th, 49th, but he got bailed out by himself playing a little better, and then Purge having a stinker and dropping down to a 0.84. But Shotzzy's sitting at a 0.87 so far in hardpoint. HyDra, however, is 43rd. I mean, this is something that you would never expect, really. HyDra to be at a 0.89, even Sib is at a 0.88. So there are certainly some players here that you wouldn't expect to be struggling in hardpoint in this part of the season, and they are. So look, as Scrap says, yeah, Shotzzy's grinding, playing a few chals, but really it's the respawn work with the team that's going to be the difference maker. OpTic search also hasn't been spectacular, for sure, and that could be a key differentiating factor for them, but Merc is averaging a 1.5, so that's always kind of helpful. But in terms of consistently, and also confidence building as well, it's the hardpoint which is the key factor. Shotzzy, we know he can have slow starts to seasons, we've seen it before. These are his numbers so far. I'm sure that he's going to put it together again at some point. Towards the end of the year, Shotzzy usually really starts to deliver. But obviously OpTic fans don't want to wait that long. They don't want to wait until Major 3, Major 4 to feel like, okay, now we might be back. Especially because it's an important tournament. It's their home major. It's the biggest one that we've had a long time since the Esports World Cup, the first land back. People are very excited for it, and for good reason. They've got the ring ceremony on the Saturday, so they need to be at least giving the boys some level of confidence. The last thing you want is to get knocked out on Friday and then have to turn up on the Saturday to collect the rings. It's going to be a little bit awkward in the venue if that was true. So they can't afford that to happen. It won't, because they're playing Falcons, and even if they were to lose, they play Cloud9, a series that you would think would be impossible to lose anyway. So look, I think OpTic, it's just OpTic making a Sunday. I think this tournament would be acceptable. That would be okay. It's obviously not ideal. You want to win, especially for the fans and for the home crowd. But if they don't, it's not the end of the world if they at least make a respectable run. I just think last year, the first major of the year was in Madrid, and I think there was similar talk about OpTic. They'd gone through a bit of drama at that point, the Pred drama, the Huke thing and all this, and they were the #1 seed, but there were some questions how good they'd really be on LAN. People said, look, if they make a finals, or they make a Sunday, maybe the finals would be nice, but if they make a Sunday, they'll be in a good spot. I think they bombed out top 8 in the end, which wasn't a great early sign. So, yeah, the bracket's all to play for. I don't think Falcons is necessarily a bad matchup for OpTic, but as we said earlier in the video, there certainly are plenty of storylines that these guys are going to be keeping their eyes on. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Many remember Kismet in 2023 calling out Scrappy for his trash talk, but in the post-game interview, Huke remained humble like he always has. Huke always let his gameplay do the talking.
What the fuck did that have to do with me?
Regarded as one of the most likable and
It's a Huke
hard-working
documentary.
pros in the scene, he has been
This motherfucker.
criticised by teammates,
We
analysts,
just threw
and
that
fellow
shit to fucking
competitors
Vegas
more than
fucking 5
most.
years ago.
But Huke never responded with words. He let his
Shut
gameplay
up.
speak for
Where-
itself.
this guy just said that out of
This story
nowhere.
was recognised by the community as Huke was awarded
Guy's a fucking
Comeback
dick
Player
rider.
of the Year at the Breaking Point Awards. After another major win at EWC, and with OpTic in scorching form for Black Ops 7,